Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be. Welcome to another exciting installment of ACE Academy's 7th grade science live. Recorded in this case from the front of bunker, deep in the partially quarantined southeast United States. It's 7th grade science. Now, I hope everybody's had a great day today so far, whenever this day may be for you. Remember to like the video. Remember to say, hey, I was here in the comment section and sign up for the channel. Also, remember, hey, if you're going outside, remember, stay 6 feet away from those other folks around you. Wear a mask if you can. It is a help. We still have not achieved anything close to herd immunity for this illness that's been passed around. And again, whereas most people get it and never know they have it, the occasional few that do have issues with it do have severe issues. So please, please be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Don't be close to other people. I said this to some eighth graders the other day. I said, in science fiction land, when you don't want to be a red shirt. I mean, red shirt dates back to the old Star Trek days when Scotty and Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock would beam down to some foreign planet. They'd take a couple of dudes in red shirts along, and guess who always got killed on those away missions? The guys in the red shirts. So don't be the crash test dummy for, this COVID-19 thing. Don't be a red shirt. Maintain your distance. Stay away from other people. 6 feet. Think if you had a sword in your hand. If you could hold out your hand with your sword in it and touch the other person, you're too close. All right, let's get on to what we're actually to talk about today. So I'm going to share the screen. We're going to go over here and find the thing we're doing. Here we go. All right, air quality. So today, 7.E.1.6, we're talking about air quality. It'll be the last thing, next to last thing. Tomorrow, we'll talk about some pollution. And then we'll review and have a unit assessment. So unit assessment's coming up in this. I'll put some things into your classwork section. That will be review materials. They will not be graded. They will simply be there for your own purposes, and you can use them to however you like. I advise you to do all the review materials. Your test grades will thank you for it. So today I can identify the components of air quality. So when we talk about the term air quality, what are we talking about? Some people will say that air is okay to, air that is okay to breathe. Some people will say air that has no pollution. Some people will say the air that doesn't make them sick, and they will all be correct. Quality simply means the standard of something as measured against other things of a similar kind, the degree of excellence of something. Air quality is really in the eye of the breather. Anyway. So if we step back and look at air and its components and what else naturally and artificially gets into the air, we can hope to come up with some ideas about what constitutes high quality air and low quality air. So remember that the atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.93% argon, and 0.04% carbon dioxide, with trace amounts of neon, helium, methane, krypton, and hydrogen, as well as water vapor. And there are other things in the atmosphere. But when we say trace amounts, traces just barely occurs. So anything else that's in the atmosphere at this point, because again, considering the bubble of air that surrounds the entire planet, that's a lot of stuff. Anything else that's there literally doesn't show up when you test it, unless you test it like in the middle of the smoke plume that's here behind me, where you'll find, you'll be able to find concentrations of other things. But for the most part, it's those 9 gases. So most people consider high quality air to be as close to that list in those concentrations as possible. Go to the mountains or deserted beach. Many people say the air is crisp and clean and as good as it gets. Others will say that hot and dry air in the southwest United States, unpopulated areas is best. Well, each has its proponents, but for each example, the contents of the air are not as close to the high quality standards as we would like to believe. The reason that this truth is that nature, in its own processes, emits things into the air that are definitely not on the pure air list. The largest, most prolific polluter on the planet is the planet itself. Between volcanic eruptions that emit massive amounts of all sorts of poisonous gases, the day-to-day slow percolation of gases from slumbering volcanoes, to the subsea deep water vents that pour black smoke all day long, the Earth's natural processes put things into the atmosphere that we do not consider healthy. Think about this. The Great Smoky Mountains, they're literally called smoky. The Great Smoky Mountains have been a fixture of hazy winter in the U.S. well before European settlers arrived in the 1600s. Native American Cherokee lore calls the mountains Shakonage, which translates to place of the blue smoke. The seeming air pollution over the mountains is the result of the emission of hydrocarbons called terpenes by the plants that live there. Hydrocarbons. Usually when we talk about hydrocarbons, we're talking about literally like oil pumped out of the ground and put into cars. Well, that's a hydrocarbon. Well, actually, in science, hydrocarbon is just a chain of hydrogen carbons put together. But when we talk about hydrocarbons in general, we're usually talking about petroleum and its products. Here are plants that emit hydrocarbons into the atmosphere. They're polluting. Are they? It is terpene. You know, if you've ever heard of turpentine, that's what terpenes are. So there's plants that emit this stuff into the air. So again, it's all pollution is not based on what humans have done to the planet. A lot of it is, but not all of it. So you can't just go look and say humans are bad, nature's good. Nature has its own way of putting things into the atmosphere and in the ground and everything else that is almost as on the same scale as what we could do. So it is not something that is solely in the human realm of quote pollution. So these terpenes that these plants emit react in the air with the naturally occurring ozone to produce the haze that we can see. This is just some of the, these are just some of the examples of the natural processes that lead to air quality issues. Other quality issues arise from other natural processes. Once again, if we define air quality as air that does not make us ill, then all the allergy suffering people around the world would say that the plants and animals should be removed from the planet. As somebody who has mild allergies but lives with a couple of people who have major allergies, all those green things outside really are a pain in the rear because they make my poor children sick, sick, sick. But that's the world we live in. So, if we removed all those green things, there really wouldn't be much of a world left to live in, would there? So it's just something we have to deal with. So the natural the natural process of pollination leads to a type of air pollution that debilitates millions of people per year. Air quality is something almost a subjective measurement depending on the person making the observation. With this being the case, though, we have dedicated a department in the United States government to determine what acceptable atmosphere is to live in. The EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, is the cabinet level department. Cabinet level means literally the dude reports directly to the president. So you have, the secretary, you have the Secretary of Defense, that's the cabinet level position. You have the Secretary of the Interior. You have the Secretary of State, which deals with all of our interactions with other countries. And you have the head of the EPA sits on the same level with those other people. So, it is a cabinet level agency. That's a big deal. This agency is tasked with determining what is acceptable air quality and regulating what is emitted into the air, among other things, in the United States. Most Western countries, Europe, France, Germany, Spain, Great Britain, those countries, Western countries, have some sort of similar agency in their government as well. Unfortunately for humans, the two most populous countries on the planet, India and China, have very weak or non-existent air quality regulations. Just look at the picture behind me, China. But air quality is not a modern problem. The residents of ancient Rome refer to their city's smoke cloud as gravioris caeli, heavy heaven, and infamous air, infamous air. Several complaints about its effects can be found in classical writings. Quote, no sooner had I left the oppressive atmosphere of the city, Rome, than the reek of smoking cookers which pour out along with the cloud of ashes all the poisonous fumes they've accumulated in their interiors whenever they're started up, then I noticed a change in my condition, unquote, wrote the philosopher and statesman Seneca in AD 61. 61 years after the death of Christ, they're already complaining about air pollution. The technology to advance our civilization is always ahead of our ability to counter its effects on the environment. When we invent new processes to do something, and as often takes years to figure out that some of the same aspect of our new invention is harmful to us. Sometimes it is a natural occurring material such as asbestos. Asbestos is a naturally occurring silicate material, and it's literally a rock that you find in the ground. You can mine it. It is an excellent electrical and heat insulator. It was used in building materials. It was discovered to be toxic. They started mining it in the late 1800s. It was discovered to be toxic about 1930, but in the US, it was still widely used until the 1940s, specifically in the shipbuilding industry for World War II. They used asbestos stuff to insulate the boilers and the pipes and everything else that powered all those ships that helped us win World War II. Unfortunately, for all those workers in the docks and stuff that had to deal with that stuff, it made them about 4 out of every 1,000 of them, it killed them dealing with the asbestos. So, sometimes these things that we find like, oh, this was a glorious invention. Years later, it's like, oh, this was a horrible thing. But for the time we used it, it served the purpose it was invented for. PCBs, here's right here. PCBs, which are polychlorinated biphenyls. You don't have to know that, just refer to it as PCB. But it was like the boogeyman in the 70s, and this is something I literally remember, growing up. All the talk about PCB, pollution, especially because at the time I was growing up in New York, where there was a ton of PCB pollution. So PCBs were invented in the 1870s. These were liquids that were carbon and hydrogen rings with attached chlorine molecule. And there's like 200 different ways of making, types of PCBs that are all variations on where the carbon, the chlorine molecule hooks up to the carbon and hydrogen rings. But anyway, they were invented about the 1870s. And these liquids were amazing insulators and had a very low flammability, and they were incredibly stable. So they were fabulous at putting into things like capacitors and electrical transformers, so that when something happened inside the transformer, if something arced or sparked or anything else, this stuff didn't catch fire. And the gases that the arc made inside the transformer were not flammable or toxic. Well, not really toxic. And they were able to be contained within the transformer. So it was a fabulous thing to put in this stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, it does all this, it's incredibly useful. Does all these things. Unfortunately, we didn't figure out exactly until about the 1920s. We started going, hey, wait a minute. These people that are having to deal with this stuff, like in the production of it, or they have accidental spills and exposures. Wow, they get horrible things happen to them medically. Skin rashes and other things, and even genetic stuff between them passing on to their children. But so as early as 1922, we were figuring out that these PCBs are not exactly this thing to be having getting into your body. But it took until the 70s, 1970s, it took 50 years of going, yeah, this stuff's not great, to holy cow, it's horrible, to realize the tricks and how hazardous PCBs are banned in manufacturing. Both of these hazardous materials can be airborne. EPA monitors the air for their levels and maintains an exposure limit. Science and industry tend to create things that are useful and productive in some way long before it advances far enough to realize that they have harmful effects on the environment and the people and animals and everything else that exist in that environment. It has been this way for centuries. Technology and civilization advances always outstrip the ability to figure out, all right, well, is this really something we should be doing, because of whatever reason? And then, 40, 50, 60 years later, we go, ooh, wow, we shouldn't have done that. Oh, well. It kills a bunch of people. It makes a bunch of people sick, creates a bunch of situations and brownfields and, hazardous waste sites and all this other stuff. But yes, again, but here we've gotten to the point now in our science, in our technology, that we're pretty sure, that especially with regulation here in the United States, that you can't just go using anything you create right off the bat willy-nilly to do something anymore. You have to test it. And you have to prove to a bunch of these government agencies that, guess what? Yes, it doesn't kill people. It doesn't harm the environment. It's not, it's not going to get out and, cause cats to have 3 heads and whales to, die off or something like that. Because we have now regulations to prevent that kind of thing. And most Western countries do. But here's the problem. So we have equipment that we can use to clean the air. We have equipment, to protect ourselves from harmful things in the environment. You can buy a mask at Lowe's that allows you to breathe practically any kind of contaminated air in the environment and it'd be perfectly fine. You can buy a hood and bodysuit that goes with this thing that basically will allow you to walk into some place that's horribly contaminated and have nothing really happen to you. It's a trick to get out of it without contaminating yourself, but hey, you do have the stuff to be able to do that. We have created technology to create what we call scrubbers that we could put on power plant exhaust stacks, the smokestack at the power plant or at the manufacturing facility, and take all that harmful crud out of the smoke before we let the rest of the smoke, up into the air that has less, things that are now not nearly so harmful. We can do that, and we have here in the United States. So we have equipment and industries come up to clean up the emissions from power plants and manufacturers. We can generate electricity now with much cleaner burning natural gas versus the coal that causes acid rain. Even the coal burning plants left are using coal that contains less sulfur. So we went from burning coal that had a high level of sulfur. When you burn sulfur like that, high level sulfur coal, you get sulfur dioxide out the chimney, and sulfur dioxide is one of those things that creates acid rain. We said, hey, we got to burn coal with a lot less sulfur in it. So we found coal with less sulfur in it and have to burn out. And we put the scrubbers on the smokestacks in addition to burning coal with less sulfur in it. And the emissions from those smokestacks are minor, small pieces compared to what they used to be in the past. So, but the only thing is, all of this stuff costs money. And it makes power and the products that are manufactured in plants that use this kind of stuff more expensive. Okay, guess what? We're willing as a country to pay that added cost to have clean air to breathe. You go around saying, "Oh, the air is free." No, it's not. You pay for it day in and day out. Whether it's the cost, it's the price of some, gasoline. You're paying for clean air when you buy gasoline because it has to have things in it to help reduce the emissions of cars. When you buy products, when you buy electricity, when your parents pay the light bill, they are paying for clean air. And when you get out of high school, guess what? You'll pay for clean air too here in the United States. But guess what? Having clean air, it's actually kind of nice. Look behind me. Look at that. Wow, would you like to live there? No, you wouldn't. It is nasty. They don't pay for clean air over in China and India. That's why it costs so little to manufacture things over there. They have the same environmental regulations. Should they? Yeah. And if they did, guess what? We would produce a lot of things back here in the United States that we now are producing over there because the cost wouldn't be any cheaper. We just bring the manufacturing back here. So in China and India, where there are few to no laws covering air quality, it's much cheaper to produce things. That's why there's so much production has moved to China and India. But the world and primarily the people of those countries are paying a price for their lack of environmental concern. These are some pictures these are China. So these poor people are just walking to work. That's the air they have to breathe. That's not a cloud. That's not just fog rolling in off the bay. That's smog. That's pollution. That's pollution. Look at the plants. Look at the smoke coming out those chimneys. There ain't no scrubbers on those chimneys, are there? Look at this yellow stuff coming out. Really? Geez, when it's that colored, can it be good? No, it can't. So, air quality is important to us. That's why we are willing to pay in the United States for good air. We pay for air, and our air doesn't look like this. Well, maybe sometimes, LA or New York City on a bad day, it might look close to that. But once in a blue moon, and not so much anymore as it used to be. Now in the 70s, when I was a kid, LA looked like this. Of course, in the 70s, China was, we're still all farming rice and not a whole lot going on over there. But again, different story. But yeah, that was LA in the 70s. LA today doesn't have many days like that anymore because we regulate what we could put into the air. Is it good for business? Not so much. Is it good for us? Yes, it is. Is it worth doing? Yes. Clean air makes you live longer. Anyway, So, if you have any questions or anything, please give me a call, 704-363-9034. Remember, we are approaching the end of this unit. We'll have one more day of material on, true air, pollution and what, quantifies as as pollution. And then we'll go on and start reviewing and have an assessment. Remember to like our video. Remember to say, hey, I was here down in the comment section. And like I said, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll catch all of y'all later. Hope you're recording off. Arrivederci, folks.